Alright, so I'm going to demonstrate the differences in weight in various parts combinations with pretty much most of the parts I have available here. Here's a stock piston. $7.95, 5 grams. Speed Pro forged stock replacement, touted as drop-in with no balance required. That's a pretty good difference. 727 versus 795. I'd rebalance if I use that. Here is a 725 5. This is a stock stroke replacement performance style piston, non-shelf. Here's a long rod stroker, the lightest of them all at 625. See how it's got the pin and the rail and the oil ring, which requires rail supports. Not really going to get into the different types of pins because they vary in weight too. These guys are pretty close. These guys are a little different. Now let's talk rods. Here's a stock 2-dot rod, 694 5. Here's a Molnar rod, stock stroke, 5960, 688. Here's a Molnar long rod stroker, 710 5. Here's a Oliver stock stroke rod, 703 5. Here is a GN1 rod, 688 5, but I have a bearing in there, so you take the bearing out, it's about 650, so that is the lightest one. So there's just a little bit of information. Really and truly, we'd like to get these all within a gram. Ideally, we'd like to have them all be perfect. Just depends how much time you're going to spend. I did a set of pistons last night that was within a gram out of the box from the factory. These Molnar rods were about the same. They were about within a gram. So whenever I do the big end and little end, we'll see how that shakes up. And if the big end and little end has a little variance, I'm going to have to probably do some grinding. And by big end, I mean this is the big end. That is the little end. This is the end that's swinging around. This is the end that's on the crankshaft that's swinging on a crank. So, and of course, then you have bearings. These are narrow width bearings, performance. That is a H bearing performance that's already been chamfered, and that's a H bearing that hasn't been chamfered. So you got to take all of that into account. If you're going to run a steel crank, 9 times out of 10, it's going to need to be chamfered. So 38 grams is a pretty safe number. And that's what I got. So there's some information about balancing the components and what they weigh. Stock versus performance, shelf versus non-shelf.